Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker, an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I've got this mirror fold card to share with you that uses hand-pinned petals and the hand-pinned designer paper. Let's get started. For this card, I'm going to be using the hand-pinned petals bundle, which is the hand-pinned petals photopolymer stamp set, and the pinned flowers dies. Now, when you buy these two together as a bundle, you do receive a 10% discount over purchasing them separately. I've got a piece of basic white and my Memento ink pad and the larger of the floral from the hand-pinned petals, and I'm just tapping on ink, making sure I've picked up all of that design. And I'm going to stamp over here and take time and make sure I've applied pressure all the way across without rocking my block. Okay, and then I'm going to stamp that a second time so that I'll have some extra elements from this. And again, we'll give this a rub. Okay, let's set my block aside and get this ink pad out of the way. And I want to do some coloring. So I'm going to bring in some of my Stampin' Blends, and we're going to mimic some of the colors that are in the designer paper that coordinates with this bundle. And I'm going to start with this larger flower and create a color that's similar to Blushing Bride. Let me zoom in here. Make sure I stay in camera. So we do not have a Blushing Bride Stampin' Blends, so I'm using light Flirty Flamingo and light Crumb Cake. And we'll go over that with the light Crumb Cake. And then I'm going to blend again with the Flirty Flamingo and work my way around. And that Crumb Cake undertone kind of gives that same tone that Blushing Bride has. And I'm just doing all over color with this rather than trying for lots of shading or dimension. And as it dries, you get more of that look of the Blushing Bride. I want to do this one also. Making sure I'm still in camera here. Okay, let me put these away, and I'm going to grab my Pale Papaya next. I've got both the light and the dark, and I'm going to color some of these smaller flowers in the Pale Papaya. And I'm starting with the dark Pale Papaya in the center and then coloring out with the light Pale Papaya. And same thing, just a quick around the center And then I would like one of these to also be pale papaya over here. Okay, let's cap these up and move them aside. And grab my Daffodil Delight. Again, we're using the colors that are in the designer paper. And that designer paper is on sale through August 2nd at 15% off. If you need to add some designer paper to your stash, now's a good time. You can find a link to my store in the description below. Okay, so the dark Daffodil Delight first, and then the light Daffodil Delight. So there's our bouquet. And then for the green, I'm going to be using Just Jade. So let's color those leaves. And apparently coloring my finger with Just Jade was also part of today's plan. And I want a little more shading down here at the bottom, so I'm taking that dark back in. And move on around and come up the vein, that central vein there. And move again. Using my dark at the bottom. And then the lighter Just Jade. And blend out with the light. And our last set of leaves. Oop, I want to add a little here before I forget. And then go with the light. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the camera for a moment and color a couple of these, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've used the die to cut out my bouquet here that we colored, and then I've used my paper snips and cut out a couple of extra pieces that I colored from that second image that we stamped. And then I've got some Just Jade cardstock here and the die that cut out our bouquet, and I'm just going to trace that with a pencil, the outside edge of it, making sure that I'm holding it in place. You could use some washi tape to hold it in place if you prefer that to your fingers, making sure that the washi tape doesn't come on the outside to keep you from tracing part of the line. Let me just move fingers around again and continue my trace. Okay, and that's all the way around. Let me set those aside, and then I'm going to use paper snips and cut right along that line. And of course, as I always tell you, you're going to turn the cardstock, not your scissors, and that way you get a nice cut. You'll see that I'm not closing my scissors all of the way. That's also one of the tricks of and I'll just speed this up and finish cutting. Okay, and there we're done. So let's set that aside. And I've got one bit of stamping yet to do. So I've got my sentiment and a piece of basic black. I'm going to brush that with my embossing buddy and ink up my sentiment with Versamark. And let's straighten this up on one of the grid lines. And just holding that in place and rubbing across the top, not pressing, because that will cause your those fine letters to kind of spread and splat. And then we're going to sprinkle that with white Stampin' Emboss powder and give that a good flick off. I'm checking all around. It's a little humid here today, which can cause your embossing powder to stick in places that you don't care to have it. And then let's bring in my heat tool, and we're going to preheat that. I'm going to turn this so I've got the larger end to hold, and then I'm going to heat from the back so that I'm not blowing my embossing powder around as it heats and begins to set. So you'll end up with fewer flecks of embossing powder out on your cardstock. Okay, so that's done, and let's set it aside. And now we're ready to start and work on our card base. So I need to bring in my paper trimmer and my Just Jade cardstock. I've got a PDF with all of the measurements that you can download on my blog, and that's easier to watch what I'm doing and not have to stop and copy measurements down. Okay, and then we'll slide it over for our second score line, and then I'm going to bring it back here for, let's close this up and put my score line back in the track. And here's my pencil, and I'm going to mark here. Okay. And then I'm going to turn my cardstock and put the point in the track, and then adjust my pencil mark so it's in the track. Let's bring these out of the way and pop this down. Just want to check. It takes a little bit of adjustment to get them both in, and then bring the scoring blade up to that pencil mark and score out to the point. Okay, and then we're going to turn the cardstock and put this the corner of this other score line in the track, and make sure that our pencil mark is in the center of the track. Again, it'll take you just a moment to adjust and make sure everything's good, and then score down to that pencil mark. Okay. And now this was the bottom of the card before, and it's at the top now. So again, you're going to put your pencil mark in, and then turn your cardstock and make sure I've got my cutting blade out of the way and my points in, and then I'm scoring down to that pencil mark and twisting. So I've got the corner of this score line in my track. So I'm going to close this and then bring my pencil mark in so that I can see it. Okay, so that looks good. All right. let's put this out of the way for just a moment. Take my kneadable eraser and erase those pencil lines now. With the lights, I can't see whether I've erased or not erased. Let me pull my head back here at a different angle and see. I'm going to pretend like those are. At home, you'll be able to see without lights shining down. So then we're going to take this first score line, and you want to make sure that your sides are flush. Start in the middle, and that'll be nice and even. Then you're going to bring this one forward and make sure that your sides are even. And then go here in the middle. Okay, and then you're gently going to work your pieces here, and then gently come across, and then give that a squeeze there. Okay, so there's this piece, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to gently with the score line, because we don't want to bend up our card base. Okay, and make sure our corner is matched up here. Give that a squeeze. Whoops, I'm not quite matched up, and I do want them even before I burnish. We'll have a neater card that way. Okay, so there are both of our mirror mechanisms. Oops, sorry, this one needs to, the front, this piece needs to fold in, and I'm folding the wrong direction. Okay. Pull this piece forward. There we go. Okay, so now let's set this aside just a moment, and we've got a few pieces that we still need to cut. So let's bring my trimmer back in, and I've got a piece of the Pinned Flowers designer paper, and I need to put this here and mark the 2-inch mark on the side. I'm just going to move it over into the track just a little bit and give it a little bit of a mark, and then put the point in and find my score line, the little tick mark I just put in, and I'm going to cut up to that point. Okay, put these two pieces aside. I've got another piece, and same thing. Let's do this. I want it 2 inches from the bottom. So one is from the top and one is from the bottom. And you'll look at your paper and decide which one you want to be where you want the cut edge to be. So I want to keep this amount of the design. And while I'm thinking about design, I can't see the tick mark I just put in, so let's do that again, because that's important here. Okay, now I've got it. And turn. So when you pick the design for your designer paper, you'll want to make something that isn't unidirectional, and that means that it's got an all-over pattern like this one that we're using. And then I've got a piece of basic white, which is where we're going to leave our message on this card. And I'm going to have 2 cuts on this piece. So I'm going to put this in and mark this edge with a 2-inch tick mark and turn it. Make sure my tick mark is there in the track and cut out to the point. And then, oops, let's put this aside. And then I need a 2-inch tick mark on this other. And so I want to cut here, mark here, and put that tick mark in the track. Okay. We've got a nice little, I think that's a rhombus piece. And then I've got one more piece of designer paper that we need to cut. This one's super easy. You're just putting 2 opposite points in the track. And then I suggest putting the blade down in the middle and coming out to each point. And that way you're not cutting the point. So you're going to do 2 of those. And we're ready to assemble. Let's move this out of the way. And I've got a couple of extra triangles of paper and I want to put those out of the way. And let's bring our base back in and start with some multi-purpose glue. And as I said, there are measurements on my blog to coordinate with the video. Okay, so we'll add this piece, and then let's add this piece. Just checking my borders here. Okay. And then checking my pieces. So these were one piece, but you'll notice that we can't use them both in the same area. So we will split those. I guess you could use them in the same area if you didn't want the same pattern for both pieces. Okay, so this will be the other side at the top. This is, or I'm just not thinking well here. Put that down. Okay, and then for these last 2 triangles, we need to cut our last pair of the designer paper. And you would think it might not matter which corner you cut from, but it does. I haven't cut this one large enough, so let me cut this one and make sure that I'm thinking. So here to here will give us the cut to fit this piece. And if we had cut this corner, so you just have to change to the opposite corner that you're cutting to get the fit for this triangle. And lift that up past the point just a minute and come down and then go up to this other point. Okay. So this is one, and let me turn off the camera just a second and recut my other piece of paper. I cut it just a little small. Okay, let's bring this back in and adhere these last 2 pieces. Okay, and then this one. Okay, making sure that I'm not going over my score lines. And then we need this piece. Make sure that I've turned it the right direction. Put my adhesive on and slide this one into place. Okay, and now it's time to finish assembling the front of our card. Okay, so I'm just going to fold our card together here a moment. And bring this one in. Okay. So let's give this, that's a lot of bulk that we've added to that card. So I'm just going to give this a rub with our bone folder so that everything is good. So I've got this piece that we cut out and traced, and I'm going to add our piece that we colored and die cut over top, and that will give it a little bit of a border around the outside of our die cut. I'm adding lots of dimensionals so that it's good and stable. Pull the backing off, and I think I want a couple of mini dimensionals, at least one out here on a leaf. Okay, and line that up with this piece. Okay, and add dimensionals on the back of this, because why not? And again, with one of the mini dimensionals out here on a leaf. And let's set that down just a moment. And next I've got that extra leaf and flower. Let's set this aside. And I've got my Stampin' Pierce mat. And we're going to add a little dimension to these. I've got my Take Your Pick tool. And let me just add in the ball end. I'm using the larger ball, and I want to start around the center, and then I'm just going to kind of drag this towards the center so that this cups up a little bit. Okay, and then the same thing on this. I'm just going to drag this down so that it gets a little bit of shape, and we'll put that aside and move this out of the way and grab this back in. And I'm just going to use multi-purpose glue on the back of this and on the back of our leaf. And I think I'm going to tuck a mini dimensional up here at the top of my leaf. So this is, I'm going to offset this just a little bit for the one that is the flower that's underneath, and then tuck this flower in the leaf under the flower there. So give that a second to hold. And by offsetting it just a little bit, you get the appearance of more petals under there. Okay, and now we're ready to add this to the front of our card. Bring this down just a little bit. And now it's time to add a sentiment. So we've got this one that is embossed on the black. And I'm going to take my paper trimmer and trim this rather than eyeballing it. So let's move that aside just a moment. Okay, so let's bring that in, and I want an angled cut on this. It will complement all the other angles that we have going on. And that needs a little TLC on the edge. It's a little fuzzy, so I'm going to take my a block that's used for nails and gently take that fuzz off. And then let's bring our card back in here, and I want to kind of tuck this under. Okay. Oops. Making sure I get under all of the pieces. And since our card's a little narrower, we can hang over the edge a little bit if you'd like to. Okay. And there we are with our mirror fold. Thanks for stopping in today. This was Sara Levin, the Artful Inker of theartfulinker.com. If you're in the United States, please do some of your shopping in my Stampin' Up! Store. Don't forget that PDF over on my blog with the measurements and all your scoring. You can find the link in the description below. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your card making friends. And when you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell, you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Have a great day. Bye.